Okay, good afternoon. I am Yunling Wang, your host for this session. Thank you for joining us today for the special keynote speech by Davis Nguyen. Davis was born to a family with members who never went to college. But at the age of 18, Davis received full scholarships to Yale and Harvard universities. He ultimately graduated from Yale with honors and a degree in economics. Davis was raised by a single mother in one of the poorest neighborhoods in the US, and most of the residents there grew up with limited job choices. But even still in his late 20s, for already more than 3 years, Davis has been the CEO of an international company which helps people from all over the world start their dream careers. Does everything sound like a miracle? Do you also want to have the magical genie? Let's all welcome the outstanding and generous Davis to share the secret to his success and find out how we can use the secret to achieve our goals in life. Let's welcome Mr. Davis Nguyen.
谢谢Yuan. What if I told you that within 40 minutes, I could teach you a secret that would make your life better starting today? And what if this secret could help you achieve any goal that you have in life, as well as improving the world around you? But in order for me to share this secret, we have to go back to my childhood. When I was a kid, my family had a tradition. Every Sunday, my family, all 20 of us, would have to go into my grandma's house. My grandma's house wasn't very big. In fact, our dinner table only fit 6 people, so we had to take turns eating. But I always looked forward to going to my grandma's house every single week, because every single week I could expect a warm bowl of pho. My grandma would spend all day making this bowl of pho. She would make it with American beef, with Thai basils, and with Vietnamese noodles, all into this perfect bowl. And we would all take turns because the table could only fit 6 eating. But the one person who would always be at the table was my grandma. And every time you sat next to my grandma, she would always start asking you questions. For me, my siblings, and my cousins, she would always ask the same questions. She would ask, how's school going? How are you treating your mom? And why didn't you call me this week? I was always nervous when it came my turn to answer these questions, because my grandma was like a cram school teacher. She was waiting for you to give the wrong answer so she could correct you. So I was always nervous when I had to answer. But my grandma, when she corrected you, it wasn't about your pronunciation of Vietnamese. It wasn't about which tone you used. It wasn't about your sentence or how simple your words were. No, my grandma, she didn't care about grammar, but what she cared about was word choice. Because to my grandma, words have meaning and words have power. To my grandma, what you said to yourself or not said could affect your life. Because to my grandma, your words become your thoughts, and your thoughts become your actions, and your actions become your habits, and your habits become who you are. And I'll share you a story, what I mean. When I was 5 years old and I was starting school for the first time, my grandma asked me, Davis, how was school today? And I said, I hate school. It's like, why do you hate school? It's like, I don't know English, Grandma. I can't understand what the kids are saying. I don't understand what my teachers are saying. And my grandma, she just pounded the table. She said, no, you don't know English yet. All my grandma changed was that one word, adding the word yet to the end of my sentence. Because to my grandma, the word yet had power. When I said that I don't know English, but did not use the word yet, to my grandma, it meant that I have this problem, but I'm not solving it. But when you put the word yet, it means that you have a problem, but you're actively working towards solving that problem. Because to my grandma, you could choose to use your words to make you a victim of your circumstances, or you can use your words to make sure that you become a better person. When I was older, and I was 13, my grandma would always use these lessons. When I was 13, my grandma asked me, Davis, when you're older, how are you going to take care of your mom? And I said, well, Grandma, if I become rich, I want my mom to have as much food as she wants. She can have as much coffee as she wants, and I'll buy her all the Prada and Gucci purses she wants. Once again, my grandma pounded the table. And she said, wrong. Not if you are rich, when you are rich. To my grandma, if and when also were different. To my grandma, if I said if, it meant that it might happen, it might not happen. But when I used the word when, it meant that I was actively working towards it. Having my grandma at dinner every single Sunday was like having a language evaluator at my table, even before I joined Toastmasters. But every week, I would always leave with a lesson from my grandma about the power of words and what you can do to influence your life with what you choose to say and what you choose not to say. And I call these grandma secrets. And today, I want to share 3 of these secrets with you. The first secret will help you find the positive in your life, no matter what's going on in your life. The second secret will help you accomplish anything that you want, anything that you can dream of. And the third secret will help make the world a better place. The first secret was how to make your situation better. But in order to learn this secret, we have to go back in time, a time before iPhones, a time before bubble tea, a time when my grandma was growing up in Vietnam during the Vietnam War. Because of the war happening in Vietnam, my grandma never had a chance to properly study. She didn't finish school, but she always had this way with words. Because she lived in the southern part of Vietnam and American troops would often go through the village, my grandma learned, even though she was a farmer, to pick up dialects of English, enough so that her local government hired her to be a translator. And my grandma, even without a college degree or a high school degree, took this job seriously. She used the English that she knew to help protect her village. Whenever there was news that the American soldiers would drop by supplies, she would make sure to tell her villagers to get ready because we're about to have some food, we're about to have some aid, we're about to have some water. And when she received news that the Americans might be at war, and there might be bombs, there might be mines, there might be grenades, she warned the school students to stay away from a certain path. My grandma took this seriously because she knew that every word that she used could change a life. If she told someone the wrong date to pick up supplies, they might run out of food. If she told someone the wrong path, it meant that a kid might not have a leg when they step on that mine coming back from school. And to my grandma, that is why words mattered so much. After the Vietnam War, my grandma managed to save up enough money. She saved up 5,584 NTD and moved my grandpa, my uncles, and my mom to this new land called America. But because they only had 5,584 NTD between them, they didn't have much money. In fact, that was about 1,000 NTD each for each of them to live in America. But my grandma never complained. Even though we had very few resources and money, it meant that we grew up very poor. I remember growing up and not having enough money, so we couldn't keep the electricity on during the winter. So I remember some cold December days when I would wake up and we didn't have a heater, we didn't have a stove, and we would have to use a match to light our food up. I remember other months when we didn't have enough money for water. So during the summer, when it was hot, I would wake up and not have a shower because we couldn't afford the water. And other days, I remember what it felt like waking up and not having food in my fridge, and what it felt like having to go to school hungry. And I would get bullied because I was so malnourished and so small compared to all my other classmates. And they thought, wow, what's wrong with this kid? I remember that feeling. Not having food, not having water, not having electricity. But yet, my grandma somehow always reminded us of what we did have. Every Sunday when we would eat with her, my grandma would always have us going around the table and saying what we were grateful for and the things that we did have. Even though we only had 6 pair of chopsticks that we can use to eat, at least we had 6 pair of chopsticks and not 5. And even though we didn't have the best school system, my grandma would always say, at least you have a bus to take you to school. Back in Vietnam, your uncles would have to walk through the minefields, through the farmlands to get to school. And even though, Davis, you don't know English yet, the worst that a teacher can do is teach you to be quiet. Back in Vietnam, if you didn't understand the language, they might make you sit on a durian. To my grandma, it's always looking at what makes life positive. Because to my grandma, looking at the positive side of life enables your life to be more positive versus just staying on the things that you don't have and what you're missing in your life. I remember one day going to my grandma when I was 6 years old and saying, Grandma, I hate school. I keep getting bullied. People keep picking up on me. And I was like, I can't make friends. And my grandma said, well, at least your teachers are there to protect you. The worst that they can do is steal your stuff, and that's okay. It's not like in Vietnam when you're 10 years old and then a soldier takes you away from your family so you can fight in a war. To my grandma, unless that you were living in a country that was in the middle of a war and you were forced to fight as a 10-year-old, life is pretty good. My grandma always reminded me that someone somewhere out there in the world wishes they were you. Someone is living in a place where they think, wow, wouldn't it be nice if I could have a school bus to go to? Wouldn't it be nice that sometimes I would have electricity and sometimes I would have water? And that's what my grandma did for us, is reminding us of all the great things that are happening in our lives. But I didn't quite understand this mindset until I turned 22. After I graduated from college, I decided to go back to Vietnam to explore my homeland, a land I've never seen before. And I remember what it felt like going to Vietnam and spending my entire summer before I started my first job out of college, living off the land, driving up the coast, and spending my summers getting to know this land that my grandma called home previously. And I remember in July, halfway through my trip, driving all the way up to the northern part of Vietnam. For anyone who's never been to Vietnam, it's just like Taiwan, except there's no 7-Eleven. So I drove up all the way to the mountains of Vietnam in the northern part of Vietnam that bordered China. It's similar to Yamishan, except there's no 7-Eleven. And I remember I got to Yamishan equivalent in this area in Vietnam called Sapa. And Sapa, for 300 years, has been home to the Aboriginal tribes there, known as the Hmong people. And when I got there, I met a woman named Zaza. Zaza was in her 30s, had 4 kids, and for over 300 years, she and her ancestors lived in the mountains of Vietnam. And on average, the Hmong family as a total, they make about 20 NTD per day, making them some of the poorest people in the world. Can you imagine living off of 20 NTD per day? And similar to other Hmong people, Zaza never had a chance to go to school. Zaza never had a chance to know what it was like to have an education. Because as soon as she was born, and as soon as she was able to carry weight, her job has been the same for over 20 years. Every day at 5 a.m., she and her 3 daughters would wake up and they would live 3 hours up the mountain. Imagine being at the top of Yamishan, and they would have to hike back down the mountain for 3 hours. And every day I lived with them. That was my route. But every day that you hiked, they would carry a backpack with them with about 10 kilograms of souvenirs, of clothing. Their goal was that they would make it to the town center and they would start selling the trinkets, the clothing, the hats, anything that they can make, the bracelets. And they hope that they can sell it to some tourists so that they have enough money for food. On a good day, they made about 200, maybe 250 NTD. But on most days, we couldn't sell anything. And we would have to hike back up the mountain 3 hours, thinking, what are we going to do for food? I remember some days, Zaza would think, do I sacrifice our farm and take the crop out before it's ready? Do I kill our last chicken? What do I do to feed my family? And this went on and on and on. I remember one day when we didn't sell anything, going up into the mountains, as Zaza prepared dinner and laid out everything for us to have dinner that night, and her family gathered around, knowing that we couldn't sell anything that day. I turned to Zaza and I said, Zaza, if you could have 28 million NTD, what would you and your family do with it? Zaza turned to her husband, translated the question back to Hmong, and her kids started sharing ideas, and they chatted until 4 minutes later, they came back to me and they said, Davis, we wouldn't want anything extra. We're really happy with what we have. Maybe we want a business we can run together as a family, so my kids can go to school and they don't have to hike 3 hours up the mountain and 3 hours down the mountain every day. But really, we're happy. We have each other. We have this small house, and we have our community. Today, when we didn't have enough food, our neighbors gave some of their food because they were able to make about 200 NTD today. And then tomorrow, if we make food, then we'll give them food. Listening to Zaza reminded me of what my grandma taught me at the dinner table so many years ago. And what she shared with me was the first secret to living a happy life, which was that reminding yourself every day of the things that are going well in your life. Instead of things that are going wrong, think about all the positives that are going on. My grandma would remind me that if I'm stressed at school, think about how there are soldiers, small soldiers as young as 10 years old, wishing that they could be where I am today and studying. As a CEO, when I'm stressed at work, I think there are moms and dads of these soldiers who wish they could move to another country, run a business, and be able to control their own destiny. And I think I have so much to be grateful for. And I continue on. That's the first secret I learned from my grandma, that Zaza later on reminded me, which is to focus on what's going well in your life. But my grandma not only reminded me of what's going well in my life, she also reminded me that there is so much more to life that you can create, and to create a better life for yourself and for others around you. After my grandma moved to the US with just 5,584 NTD, it was hard for her and for my family to find work because they weren't educated in the US, because they didn't speak fluent English, and because their face looked so different from everyone else. They had a hard time even finding jobs. But to my grandma, no job was beneath her. She would take on any job that she could. She would be a cleaning lady. She would work at a kitchen, or she would handle bags for Delta Airlines. But every NTD that my grandma made, she would save it. She would make sure that there was enough money for her to pursue her dreams. When my grandma was a little girl, her dream was to own a business and to be one of the first women in Vietnam to own a business. But because the war took away that dream, when she moved to America, she never gave up on wanting to own a business. And so when I was born, my grandma took the money that she saved and opened up a nail salon to make sure that our community had one. She didn't have business experience. She's never hired anyone. And she didn't even know how to do nails yet. But she had this dream and this vision that she could create a life and to improve the lives for me, my cousins, and my siblings. A life that she and my uncles and my mom never had in Vietnam. And every day she would go into the nail salon with no experience of running a business to try to figure out how to make it work. And for the first year, she didn't make money. For the second year, she didn't make money. On the third year, she finally started making money. And she would lose it. When her business started growing that third year, one night, someone in our community put fire to my grandma's store and burnt down everything. My grandma lost everything she had. And people thought she would quit. But the next day, she and my grandpa came to the store with a broom, with a vacuum, and started taking away everything. They started cleaning and rebuilding the store. A few months later, when she started rebuilding it and it started making money again, my grandma's store was robbed overnight. They took all her chairs, all the desks, all the paint. And the next day, when people thought my grandma would give up, she went back to the store, picked up her broom, picked up her vacuum, put the chairs back, and reopened the store. And when they finally started making money again, someone came into the store with a gun and told my grandma to give them all the money. And my grandma gave all the money that she made. All these instances never stopped my grandma. She kept going back at it. Because to my grandma, you have to know why you want to continue going when it gets tough. And this taught me the second secret, which is how to achieve any goal that you have in life, which is to remind yourself why you're going after this goal. Why does it matter? Why should you not quit? And this story started happening when I was 13. I hated my birthdays because every birthday, my family, because we were always poor, we never had money for gifts. So when all my friends would say, oh, at my birthday party, I got this, I got that, I never got a gift. But this changed when I turned 13. My grandma gave me 700 NTD and said, Davis, you can spend this 700 NTD on anything that you want. And I asked my grandma, what can I buy with 700 NTD that will make life better for us? So that you don't have to go to the store every day, so that my mom can have enough food, so I can have electricity and water. My grandma said, maybe invest in your education. I don't know how, but I know if you go to a good school, you can probably get a good job and help the family. The next day, I went back to my school and I asked my teacher, what is the best school that I can get into in the world? And she said, oh, there's this university called Harvard University. And I said, I don't know what that is, but I want to go to Harvard University when I'm older. And so with the $700, 700 NTD, I bought a poster of Harvard that was about 100 centimeters wide and 160 centimeters tall. And I hung it on the bedroom wall next to my bed. This Harvard poster became the first thing I saw when I woke up every single morning. It became the last thing I saw before I went to bed. And during the night, it became what I dreamt about. I wanted to go to Harvard. I needed to go to Harvard. And so I started asking myself a question. Every morning when I woke up, I would ask myself, are the things I'm doing today going to get me to where I want to be tomorrow, which is to be at Harvard? No one in my community had gone to Harvard. In fact, most people don't go to college. No one in my family had gone to college. So I had no one to turn to. But I asked myself this question every day. And I would look at this poster of Harvard and I would think, there has to be a way. And I remember researching Harvard and realizing there was only two things I needed to do. One, I needed to have a great test score on a national exam. And second, I needed enough money to go to Harvard. When it came to the national exam, asking myself this question every morning, are the things I'm doing today going to get me to where I want to be tomorrow? I thought to myself, if it's hard, I'm going to do it. At the time, for our national exam, you needed, out of 2,400 scores, 2,400 points. Harvard average was 2,200. My school average was 1,000. And my average at the time was 1,600. I needed to increase my score by 600 points. I didn't know how, But I went online and I started researching. I went on this internet website where I found all these people who had perfect scores. And I started messaging them, emailing them. I asked them, how did you get your perfect score? And a lot of them said, I went to this prep program, similar to a cram school, where my family just paid money and then they taught me how to prepare for the test. And I said, how much is it? I said, it's 3,000 USD a month. I was like, 3,000 NTD or 90,000 NTD. I cannot do that much money. My family does not have that much money. So I asked them, could I borrow your syllabus? And all these students started sending me their syllabus. And I realized, oh, these are just books that they're reading. I don't have these books. And so I called my library and I asked, how can we get these books? And the library said, we can ship these to you, but you have to pick them up. At a time, I didn't have a car. And the library was 10 kilometers away. So I did what I had to. I walked. When it was freezing, when it was snowing outside in winter, I walked 10 kilometers to pick up these books. And then I walked 10 kilometers back to my home so I can have these books. But because the library only let you borrow the books for 2 weeks, every 2 weeks, I would have to walk back 10 kilometers to check out the books and then walk back with the same books just so I can have the books to study. In the summer, when the sun was burning, I would walk. When it was hot, I could still walk. But I wanted to make sure I had these books. But every 2 weeks, I would walk and remind myself of that same question. Are the things I'm doing today going to get me to where I want to be tomorrow? If I quit, if I don't walk, if I don't get the books, there's no Harvard. If there's no Harvard, there's no better life for my family. And so I walked. And over that summer, I ended up increasing my score by those 600 points that I needed. But even with this test score I needed, I didn't have enough money to go to Harvard. At the time, you needed 7 million NTD to go to Harvard. Just so you know, in case anyone is bad at math, 7 million NTD can buy you 116,179 GPI. That is a lot of GPI that you can buy with 7 million NTD. But I wanted to get those 7 million NTD because nothing was going to stop me from helping my family. I didn't know how to get the money at the time, but I knew that in America, there was something called scholarships, where companies and nonprofits would give you money to go to college. All you had to do was apply and hope you get it. You had to interview, you had to write essays, you had to apply. And so I started applying. I made a list of about 300 scholarships to apply to, and I applied to all of them. Because asking myself this question every day, are the things I'm doing today going to get me to where I want to be tomorrow, reminded me that I have no shame, no fear. I am not shameful, and I have no fear of failure. I had no shame, in fact, that the first scholarship I applied to was called Women Entering Technology. They rejected me. And so did almost 200 other scholarships. But the scholarships that eventually did accept me said, yes, Davis, we want to help you go to college. And even if a scholarship was as small as 6,000 NTD or as big as 100,000 NTD, I would take all of them until eventually I raised more than 28 million NTD that I needed to go to Harvard. And then 10 years ago this month, Harvard told me, you're accepted. While it's been more than 10 years since I was accepted to Harvard, I still look back and remind myself of that question that I ask myself every day, which is, are the things I'm doing today going to get me to where I went tomorrow? And I started applying it to other areas of my life. For example, when I was overweight and I wanted to lose 20 kilograms, I would ask myself, is drinking this bubble tea going to get me closer to being skinny? And the answer is no, I don't drink it. You don't have to be going to Harvard to apply the second secret. Similar to my grandma, every day, waking up, going to her store, you can apply this to your own life, whatever your goal is. If your goal is to have a better relationship with someone, asking yourself, if I get angry at this person, would this help me get my goal? if I eat this G pie, will it help me lose weight? If I get mad at my boss, will it help me have a better place to work? And I always think, if I ask myself this question and the answer is no, I need to change something about my day. I need to change something about what I'm doing. And that was the second secret that my grandma taught me. Always remind yourself why you're going after your goal. And when you remind yourself, tell yourself with words why you're going after the goal, you'll get closer to that goal, no matter what that goal is. That's secret number 2. But it wasn't enough for my grandma that you achieve your goals. In fact, the third secret I'm going to share with you was probably my grandma's favorite. It was more important than secret number 1, having a positive outlook in life. It was more important than number 2, achieving your goals. But number 3 is about how to make the world a better place. And to do this, many years after my grandma's nail salon finally started making money, she retired. And my grandma, before she retired though, there were many women who looked at her, many of them envious of her and wanted to be like her, even her own employees. What would you do if you were a boss and your employees wanted to copy you, to set up another competitor to you, to take away your business, to take away your customers, to take away your money? You might fire that employee because they're trying to compete with you. 2, you might badmouth that employee. Or 3, you might make sure that that employee has a miserable day at work so that they never think about setting up a competitor for you. But not my grandma. My grandma, when she found out that her own employees, anyone wanted to set up a similar shop, she would mentor them. She would teach them all the things that she wished she knew, picking locations, which tax forms you needed to fill out for the government, and what regulations you needed to follow. My grandma taught them all of that, knowing that she would not get anything in return and that they could set up a shop 2 kilometers away from her and take away her business. But for my grandma, it was all about helping people achieve their goals. But this didn't apply to just business. When my grandma retired a number of years ago, she started gardening. And many of the things that she gardened were tomatoes. And one day, I remember going in to visit my grandma for the fun nights that we usually have. And I noticed, hey, Grandma, what happened to your tomatoes? And Grandma said, oh, looks like somebody stole my tomatoes. Like, you see the fence broke down. And I was like, oh, Grandma, what are you going to do? Are you going to build a taller fence, a bigger fence, a taller gate, a stronger gate? What are you going to do? Grandma was like, no, I have a lot of tomatoes. I'm probably just going to, if they're willing to break my stuff to get in, I'm just going to set some tomatoes outside for free and just put a sign that says, help yourself. To my grandma, when you finally achieve your goals, whatever it is, if it's just to have enough money to sustain a house, to my grandma, when you have the money, you can build taller fences or you can build longer tables. And to my grandma, it was better to build a longer table to serve others. And that was my grandma's philosophy. It was always making sure that once you achieve your goals, and for her, being a business owner, she wanted to help others achieve their goals of owning their own business, so they too can provide for their families. And I think about this a lot, about how do you improve the world once you achieve what you achieve? There's so much more I want to achieve in my life, but I also know, reminding secret number 1 for my grandma, that I've also achieved a lot. Going back to my summer in Vietnam, when I was with Zaza, I remembered what she said that dinner. That same dinner, where she told me that her family was already happy and that they don't need 7 million NTD. But if they did have 7 million NTD, they would want to start a family business. I asked, what type of family business? And Zaza said, my dream has always been to give a tour of my homeland of Sabah. Zaza, interesting enough, never went to school, but she had a talent for languages because there were so many tourists who came to Sabah every year from China, from France, from Vietnam, that she learned how to pick up languages. She could speak Hmong fluently. She could speak Vietnamese fluently. She could speak Mandarin fluently. She could speak Vietnamese fluently. I was like, wow, she's amazing. But she never had a chance to use those talents. And she said, I would want to. And I asked, what's stopping you? I said, well, Davis, I can't write. So when I go down to the town and I ask people, do you want me to give you a tour around? And I have no signs, can't text, can't message. What do you think people will think? They'll think I'm scamming them. They think I'm gonna take them to the mountains and kill them and take their money. I was like, that's true. It sounds like then you just need some marketing material. You just need some flyers. And I thought, well, I think that's something an American educated student can do. So the next day, we went down to the town center, hiking up the same 3 hours. And I went to a local shop. Because I didn't have 7-Elevens, I had to go find a printing shop. I thought, I can probably make her a flyer or something. So I spent the day, well, not even a day, 3 hours, making these flyers, printing out reviews. And I said, Zaza's a great host. This is what we did. This is my Facebook. My name's Davis. I put all these on the page. And I even laminated it so that if it rains in Sapa, it wouldn't blow away her flyers. And I made 20 copies of this. In total, it cost me less than 300 NTD in 3 hours to make these flyers, to make sure that she had these business cards so that she can share it off. And then the next day, I said, today, we're not taking the 10 kilograms of stuff. You can tell your daughters to stay home as well. You and I are going to the center of town. And you're gonna hand these flyers out until you get your first customer. And that day, after just walking around for an hour, Zaza found her first customer. And that day, she made 700 NTD from one customer. 700 NTD, that's more than enough to feed her family for an entire month. 3 years ago, my sister, after she graduated from college, wanted to go back to Vietnam as well. And I gave her a list of all the places I went. And she said, Davis, I loved how you helped Zaza start a business. I want to see how her business is doing. I was like, I would love that. Why don't you go and tell me how her business is going? I told her how to contact Zaza, what she looked like, and where she would be in the town center at what time. I heard nothing from my sister. But when my sister was about to come back home to America, my sister said, Davis, this is interesting, but I think it's different from what you were here. I was like, oh, what changed? I said, well, Davis, Zaza's not doing one-to-one tours anymore. I was like, oh no, did she go back to selling the 10 kilograms of goods? Oh, this is not good. It's like, Davis, she's giving 4 people at a time a tour now. I was like, whoa, she has 4 people now? It's like, Davis, you said it was 700 NTD. I was like, yeah, 700 NTD. He's like, no, it's 2000 NTD. I was like, oh, 4 people, 2000 NTD. Wow, she's pretty good. It's like, Davis, it's even better. She has a whole team of women from her village doing this now. It's like, really? Yes, apparently she helped other women do their own tour company after you helped her. That was my favorite part. My favorite part wasn't that Zaza grew her business to host 4 people, or that she started charging 2000 NTD instead of 700 NTD. But it was that she started helping other women in her village do the same thing that she wanted to do, which is to start her own business so that her daughters could go to school. And that's what I learned. Secret number 3. When you achieve your own goals, ask yourself, how are you going to help others achieve their goals? My grandma and Zaza, they never met each other. But something tells me they would get along really well. And I hope, to my fellow Toastmasters and honored guests here today, that you also do the same thing. As the previous speakers have mentioned, as Press mentioned in his keynote this morning, as Mike Honda mentioned in his training workshop, and as Haiswat just mentioned previously to this, is how do you use your story and your journey to help other people, even if it's in just your Toastmasters club. You don't have to be a CEO of a business. You don't have to graduate from Harvard. You don't have to have been an immigrant from Vietnam starting a nail salon to help women. You already have the power to do that. The fact that you're here today means that you believe in the power of words and what words can do. Today, I share with you 3 secrets. The first secret is about how to make your life more positive by reminding yourself verbally with words what's going well. The second secret you learned was how do you remind yourself of the goals that you're working towards so you have an amazing time going to your goals. And when it gets tough, reminding yourself, why am I going after this goal? And the third secret is how do you make the world a better place once you achieve those goals? So no matter where you are on your journey, I want to ask you 3 questions. Question number 1, what are you grateful for today? Question number 2, are the things you're doing today going to get you to where you want to be tomorrow? And question number 3, once you get to where you want to be, how are you going to help others? I turn my control back to the host.
Thank you very much, Davis. Your speech is like a conclusion for all the panels and sessions we have had today. So it was a great demonstration of the storytelling skills. And second, you helped us find the pathways of our life. And thirdly, you have encouraged us to compete in the contests so that we are not afraid of competitions and afraid of obstacles. Thank you so much. Now we have some time for Q&A. We have about 5 to 7 minutes for Q&A. I would like to ask the audience to type in your questions in the Q&A box. And you can ask questions in both English and Chinese. So we will translate the questions in Chinese into English for David's. Okay, so while we are waiting for the questions from the audience, I have a first question for Davis. So sorry, I am grateful for the friends around me. Okay, very good. Yes, we have a response to your first question for the audience. What are you grateful for today? And our current PQD and future district director Doris Guo told us that she is grateful for the friends around her. Thank you, Doris. Okay, so we have questions already. Okay, great. So I will ask the question from the audience first. Okay, so a question from Chen Fu Mei. Have you ever felt down to hell? How did you overcome it?
So the question is, have I felt down and how did I overcome it?
Yes, down, not only down, but down to hell. so very, very low. And how did you overcome it?
Absolutely, I felt that way. So I'll be very honest, was a year ago was very tough. And really, that's where you and I met about a year ago, is if you remember, I was in Taiwan. I was giving a keynote address at TGIF in Taipei, Toastmasters, giving another keynote in Singapore. I was on my way back to San Francisco, where I'm based. And then, of course, COVID happened. And then when COVID happened, I was on a layover in Taiwan again. And basically, when the borders shut, I had no way of going back to the United States. And not only that, but because of COVID was happening, I wasn't sure what would happen with my business. And my employees started saying, hey, Davis, I saw my friends are losing jobs. What's going to happen to me? Our revenues are going down. It was probably one of the toughest times of my life. My business was suffering because of COVID. I was away from my friends and my family. And at the time, I didn't speak Chinese. So thank you, Wan Lao for starting my Chinese lessons there. There was so many obstacles I was facing. And I felt like, wow, my business life is going down. My personal life's going down. I can't even call my grandma. I have no connection. I'm in Taiwan by myself. But what I did was remind myself of what my grandma taught me, which was, what am I grateful for? What do I have? Well, 1, I'm safe. 2, my grandma is safe. And 3, I have smart people working for me. We're going to figure this out. And 4, I'm in Taiwan and I have a Toastmasters community. And well, I don't know Chinese, but someone in the Toastmaster community can teach me Chinese. And so you start on this path when you think about, instead of being a victim of where you are, you start, well, where can I start? And the first thing I started with was, well, I probably am going to be here for a bit. So let's make sure that my employees know that we're still going to be in business and we're still going to continue. And I just took it one step at a time. And I make it easy sound easy now, but I remember a year ago, all I wanted to do was just like not wake up in the morning and deal with these problems, thinking all this is a nightmare. But I started taking it one step at a time and reminding myself what I'm grateful for. And that was a tough time where I felt like I was going to lose everything: friends, family, my business.
Great, thank you. It's very encouraging messages. You are really a master of your grandma's secrets. Thank you. So the second question is, how can we help others in a more systematic way? The question asked by John.
That's a good question. So
yes.
I will go ahead and say that helping people in any way, systematic or not, is better than not helping people. So even if you don't have a systematic way going out and doing it. So for me personally, what we do is we donate a lot of our money to, from a business point of view, we donate a lot of our money to building schools, to making sure that women have opportunities to start businesses. So causes that I really care about are ones that I personally donate my money to. But it's not just my money, it's also time. For example, I love the Toastmaster community. I love District 67. I don't get paid to do any speeches today, yesterday, any clubs. Many of you have hosted me during my time in Taipei. And I never charge for that. And it's kind of like, I believe that by investing in the community, in this case, the Toastmaster community, that each of you will feel inspired to help out others in your own way. And that's how I systematically do it, is I think, how do I empower other people to do it? Either through money or through my own time. But it doesn't have to be on that large scale. When I was smaller and I didn't have money and I didn't have the know-how I had now, I would think, what can I do to help people? If it's just sharing my story, if it's just volunteering at the nursing home, the hospital, whatever it was, I would do the thing that I knew would bring enough talent. Because someone also taught me that when you have money, a mentor of mine said, money is just a reflection of you. When you don't have money, some people think, oh, I don't have money, I can't help people. But I was helping people long before I had any money. And back then, money is just a magnitude of who you are. If you're a nice person who's giving, when you have more money, you're just going to give. But when you're greedy, when you have money, those people just tend to be greedy. So that's how I think about systematically helping, is starting small and thinking about, what do you care about? Starting there, and soon you'll figure out ways to systematically help. And for me, it's knowing where I am. So District 67 came because I was in Taipei, and it will continue to evolve over time.
Thank you for your answer. There is a relevant question. So how do you prioritize either making money or helping others? If we don't have a lot of resources, how can we help others?
Good question. So the way that I can think about it is that you cannot help others if you cannot help yourself. Like if I don't have enough essentials to take care of my own family, then I couldn't help other people. So a lot of the helping I would do in the beginning was just very small. But until my mom was taken care of, until my grandma was taken care of, until I knew my family was taken care of, it was hard for me to do that. A lot of people, but it doesn't just apply to money, but also just applies to your own emotions, your own time, and your own well-being. So many people, they try to help other people and they forget to help themselves, and they burn themselves out. And this causes a problem. So my challenge is that when you don't have enough resources, start with yourself, because if you cannot help yourself, you cannot help others. It is like you're a candle without a fire. If you don't light yourself first, you cannot light up other candles.
Thank you very much. It's very enlightening. Okay, so although there are still a lot of other questions, our time is up. Now,